Want to make your Eldar fire dragons look like molten death on the battlefield? Stick around, I'll show you how to paint them to perfection. Let's get that paintbrush blazing. What's up nerds, my name is Sam and this is Big Nerds Wargaming. In this video we're continuing our Aspect Warrior painting, specifically with the vehicle melting fire dragons. After building the fire dragons, I primed them with a gray primer and then a Zenithal light gray primer. You can also use black and white rattle can spray paint for this. Since these models have bright vivid colors, the lighter primer with the Zenithal will help the colors shine through more vibrant and cover better overall. For these models, I want the orange armor to feel hot, like molten metal hot, so I do a base coat of Mephiston Red. I use an airbrush for this to speed things up, but you can get by with a large base brush just fine. Once that red is dry, I apply TrollSlayer Orange thin down in an airbrush using a top-down Zenithal approach. The goal is to keep that warm Mephiston Red in the shadows and in the recesses while building up that vibrant TrollSlayer Orange on the armor panels and the higher areas. Now this color isn't very opaque, so don't be surprised if you have to do a couple passes. Now I'm using an airbrush for this because I like the smoother appearance and it just speeds up time. However, if you don't have an airbrush, you can get by with using a large dry brush like a makeup brush. Those cheap makeup brushes work great for this kind of thing. And once that orange is dry, I add some basing texture right away. I use the Vallejo FX Earth texture and let that dry for an hour. But you can use whatever basing material of your choice. Next, I shade the entire armor with Fuegen Orange. Now this orange will kind of tie that red and orange colors together and kind of give it a nice blend. After this shade dries, I go back with TrollSlayer Orange and mix it with Lahmian Medium. I usually do about 1-to-1 mixture, but if you need it a little bit thinner, you can add a little bit more medium. And I just glaze it over the armor panels and the higher areas. And I do this to brighten it up overall and just keep that darker orange and red in the recesses and the lighter orange on the panels. And depending on how bright you want it, you may need to do a couple passes. Just make sure you let it dry completely before each layer. If you apply a glaze over a slightly wet glaze, it'll completely ruin the effect and you'll just have to start all over again. It'll just make the whole thing a mess. When the glaze is done, it's time for edge highlights, and for this I use Fire Dragon Bright and focus on the sharpest edges. So that's going to be your shoulders, the pectorals, and any other sharp creases you see on the armor. Thin your paint, use a small brush, and take your time. I like to run the side of my brush along the edge instead of using the tip. This is an easy trick to get a nice, clean highlight. When the armor is finished, I move on to the other details. I paint the face mask, the helmet, hoses, straps, dragon fusion gun, and any of these other details with Abbadon Black, or you can use Army Painter Matte Black. For the helmet, I use Yriel Yellow, a bright warm yellow. Yellows can be tricky, so I thin it down and build it up over a few coats. It's easier to get good coverage if you apply it over a lighter base, which we have here from the primer and the orange from before. It takes me about 3 coats to get this to cover nicely. Once the yellow is dry, I shade the helmet with Casandora Yellow. Now this is a nice warm yellow that'll kind of bring all that depth to the helmet with the details on the edge and in the recess. And then I take Yriel Yellow and Wraithbone, mix it 50-50, and I just go ahead and do some edge highlights around the face mask itself and other sharp edges on the helmet. Next, I highlight the gun, the belt, and the pouch with Dawnstone Grey over that black. This will just help make those details pop. For the buckles and soulstone casings, I use Retributor armor to get some warm metal contrast. And then the tip of the Dragon Fusion gun gets Brass Scorpion. After the metallics are dry, I shade them all with Reikland Fleshshade. Now one rule I try to follow when I paint is to never leave a metallic unshaded. Shading metallics is a great way to add some depth to the metallic and kind of make those metal paints blend in with the rest of your scheme a little bit better. If you don't know what to shade your metal with, Nuln Oil or Agrax Earthshade is always a good safe bet. However, I like to use Reikland Fleshshade or Seraphim Sepia over golds or brasses to kind of give them a different tone instead of a starker contrast that you would get with Nuln Oil or Agrax Earthshade. To finish up the last details, I paint the soul stones a Aliotic Blue, I paint the ribbons around his arm with Mephiston Red, and I paint the eye lenses on the helmet the same red. Next, I take Canoptik Alloy and do a dry brush over the gold details to give them a nice highlight. Finally, I finish up the base and add the decals, and now the fire dragons are done. Let's take a look at the finished model. I hope you found this guide helpful and that it makes painting your fire dragons a bit easier. I'm working my way through all the Eldar aspect warriors, so if there's one you want to see next, drop a comment and let me know. And if you haven't yet, check out my Striking Scorpions painting guide here. Well, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!